Hi there. I'm getting updated on the financial situation, and I'm reading about gold sales from Italy and the gold of Germany being in the United States. I think it's quite ridiculous that you would talk about that. It's a fiat currency world. You're not going to talk about the gold and collateralize it unless you want to start a war later on, because then, of course, the country with the gold has the ability to fight a war, and that's probably the reason why the gold of Germany, for a large part, is in the US. It's a way to demilitarize Germany, although German citizens are the people that possess the most gold in Europe per person. About 2% of the German people has gold, according to a statistic that I read very long ago, so it's not very actual. But the gold play is not only it's a move towards hard resource management, which says that you defend your resources with that you don't share anymore. Fiat currency situation where all kinds of central banks and the US central bank, of course, can print dollars, is also a forced resource sharing situation, but it has benefits to everybody. So basically there's a big guy, the US, that says, okay, we're going to use all the oil that's available from Libya, from Iran, from Iraq, wherever, and we're going to fight to get all that oil out of those countries. But then it's a dollar system, so if you want to go into debt in the US, if you want to work for us, you can get the oil, because you can get the dollars, and with the dollars you can buy the oil. So it's kind of, it's not a really nice relationship, but it's a relationship that maximizes the utility of the oil. I'm against that, by the way. So it's a kind of conflicting way I'm talking about it. But if you compare it with the alternative, which is that the US doesn't do that and allows other countries to go into Libya, or let's say everybody and his brother, friend, nephew, and his uncle to go into Iran or to make deals with Iran and develop all kinds of different powers, then you have chaos. And basically, for the maximization of the utility of the oil, you need peace and quiet. You need, you would like to have a single currency, because then you know what you're talking about everywhere. You know what power a region gets if it has billions, etc. Then you know that it has billions of barrels of oil, and if it has, let's say, and you can of course you can print it, and you can disperse it, and you can control people. It's let's say a divide and conquer. And then if everybody's divided and conquered, you can let them play. That's the consumer society, basically. It's not good for the planet. That's why I think it's a bad system, the carbon credit system, as I call it. But it is more secure. And basically, there's several plays out of this, and one of them would be a hard... basically what happens is that the divide and conquer mechanism has become corrupted, deeply corrupted. So these people were already rewarded, let's say, royally, with all kinds of percentages and margins, the bankers, the financial system, energy companies. And they decided that it wasn't enough and they wanted to have more, basically also because the friends of the bankers recognized, the companies, the big industry, recognized that it's about energy, and that if you can create money, you can create, you can let's say, direct energy towards some place or some other place, and that became a competitive battle between industries around the world, which is also the currency war, which is the open part. But of course the hidden part, the CDS and the over-the-counter shadow banking system, is exactly the same system. And then there's an integrity problem that I talked about in my last video, but I guess that's a boring topic. And so let's say the divide and conquer mechanism went awry, and people misinterpreted it as power, which of course it is not, or a means to control populations and etc. And they became megalomaniac and schizophrenic and psychotic, and they say, well, like Mr. What's the guy from the World Bank, or from the not the head of the IMF right now, but the head of Mr. Zulik from US. If you're an African and you don't have an irrigated piece of land, and you wonder what you will do when there's no rain and you have no food, you can buy rain index futures on the stock market, or on the in one of these financial institutions in your country. Like, I'm an African farmer and I have nothing, only my seeds from last year that I can plant, and I have a little bucket and a shovel. That's how I keep myself alive, and I'm going to buy rain index futures. That's basically a death sentence for everybody that cannot afford water when water gets commoditized, which it doesn't have to be if you simply generate it. My hair is a problem. Anyway, I have too much of it, but Zulik. IMF. So either you handle with the fraud in the divide and conquer system, financial system, and you repair the megalomaniac impact or the attitude of it, that basically let everybody die because you want to have carbon intensive agriculture, and that means that only a few people can live because you cannot do carbon intensive agriculture for everybody, and if you stop doing it then the land is dead and nobody will be able to grow anything on it, so you have to continue on that road because sort of lock in into the fossil industry. That's of course a very clear political agenda of some people, and they talk about overpopulation, there's too many people, blah blah blah. And what they're basically saying is those people have, other people have to die. So they don't try to find a solution. They don't open up patent law, and they don't open up technology, and they don't start big factories for all kinds of desalination technology, which they fund with a little tax, let's say of a few billion, and they, let's say, they make sure that there's kind of a self-propelling aspect to it. Of course, if you start a CSP plant on the coast of Mauritania, to just name a place where there's lots of sunshine, you can make all kinds of products with that solar energy, which could also include a concentrated solar power plant, because you can, of course, there's tradable commodities that you can create as long as you have energy. It doesn't have to be fossil energy, and then you have a whole new life support system that you can create out of the sun in the desert areas. That's all not done because it's about power, and the power is mediated through oil. So there's a system where basically there's one of the roads is that it kind of concentrates the oil to a region, and the rest of the region is going to be poor. And that's the casino gulag state that Marx Kaiser talks about. That means that if you have a lot of money, which would be the power to buy oil, you have to put it into a system that gambles it away, where you lose that money in a casino. And otherwise, and of course, if you don't have any money, so you have to work for your between brackets because oil makes everything, then you are in the gulag and you're being exploited and basically driven into your death, which happened in the gulags. People were digging vertical pits all day, and if they died in the pit, then they simply, the warden simply put sand over it, and that was pointed the next prisoner to another place to build a very small pit. There's a woman that talks about it on a video. Extremely cruel. And just a detail is like, at a certain point she was released from the gulag. So let's say you were being tortured for years, and then somebody says, yeah, you're free to go home now. It's completely senseless. So that's the casino gulag system that the oil addiction creates. And now there's very clearly an alternative, which is renewable energy, to replace fossil fuels, which is brilliant because you not only are making sure that you are completely, let's say, autonomous within the region that you create and use the energy, or extract and use the energy, you could say, but you're also making, let's say, creating an engine for other generation, energy generation opportunities, and you are much more clean into your environment. So your environment, so the plants and life and all the animals and etc., starts to revive itself. So it's not under pressure of acid rain or soot or any other crap, cadmium, radioactive substance. Let's not ignore the fact that coal contains a large amount of radioactive stuff, which is also in the air, which we are also breathing. This is no wonder why the cancer rates are going up. Gasoline is poisonous, it's cancerous. It used to be more cancerous because there was more benzene in it, but it's still, you don't want to have it like a glass of gasoline in the morning. It's not work. Sunflower oil, well, wouldn't be nice, but it's green and it's organic. It's in sync with us. But if you have like concentrated solar power, you can make all kinds of stuff. You can make exactly the same stuff as we have right now. The same plastics, the same materials, if you really want to. So that new road is visible, and what it needs, I think, is people being enthusiastic about it. So stop talking about the problems that are created, but start motivating people to adopt it. Because it's, let's say, even if you are following my pessimistic view that the world runs out of oxygen at this rate in 4,000 years and runs out of life a little bit later, because of hydrogen sulfide from the oceans and all that stuff, then still, how fast do you want to be in a world that runs on renewables, that is good for its ecosystem, where there's more life every year instead of less life every year? Of course, as soon as possible. So whatever you do, you try to motivate people. Don't depress them. Just say, well, solar panels are fantastic. Why don't you have them? And related to that, I was at a renewable energy gathering yesterday, and it was a kind of a musical feast, and were some people that were organizing it, and they were talking about the climate and all the stuff in between. And it was a bit chaotic actually, but the music was good, and there was lots of people that actually had something to say about renewables. And I think it was a very good example of the way it has to be, or the way it can be, because it's not about, you have the people with the content, they know about the technology, and they can help each other out. Okay, they have serious discussions. Then you have the public that doesn't really know how fucking brilliant the renewable future actually is. So how much easier it is, how much cheaper everything will be, how much, let's say, all that stuff that is just unnecessary hardship that we are suffering right now, which is because of the oil, because of the competition for oil. We are suffering, we're competing with each other in the marketplace. With renewables you don't have to compete because there's renewables for everybody. But what they need to get with the renewable future is a very good feeling. And that's easy, you know, you just have party. And you say, well, listen, the sooner you can get off oil, the more often you will have these parties. Because oil is going to organize parties, but they are going to stop when the oil runs out. That's the problem with oil. Oil is bribing everybody right now. Energy companies that have control over the flow of energy and are invested in oil and gas are hiring people that are kind of activists and stuff like that. And they say, well, I'll give you a good salary and then you can be here and and do nothing. You know, you can talk about everything renewable, but you can no longer cast shadow on us. It's bribing. But you only need a good feeling. You have to know that, let's say, if the whole world ran on renewables, which is possible, by the way, with everybody on it, all 7 billion people on it, then that would be a brilliant world. It would be fantastic. Now there's a third way to look at it, which is, and okay, just to go back to the second world, the renewable road doesn't need gold. It likes gold, but once people get focused and obsessed with gold and the fact that they need to have blah blah blah, they forget that they can do stuff. You can do stuff as an individual. If everybody gets out of his house and shovels his pavement before his house, then the whole city is clean in half an hour. You know, together you can do stuff. You don't need money for that, because you just spend, like, say, 50 calories shoveling or 250 calories shoveling your pavement in front of your house. You know, that's not loss, that's profit, because you have enough fat usually, so you can use some exercise. And there's lots of other stuff that you can do like that, and that's also what you show with Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Everywhere, is that you can simply move somewhere and make a change. It doesn't require money, or it requires a little bit of money, but not more than simply to sustain your own physical body. So obsession with gold would change all that and would create a new scarcity and a new competition, which is not necessary, I think, if you have renewables. But the gold play, I think, is in that way threatening that if, let's say, it's a preparation for war. So if you if there's still a chance to divide gold around the globe, and everything is going to be scarce, everybody is going to be fighting over everything, then gold will be the currency, the de facto currency, and if you don't have it, then you cannot hire mercenaries, you cannot do anything anymore, you cannot fight, and you lost. So basically the battle for Germany is lost at the moment. I have to stop this video because it's almost 15 minutes. But Occupy Wall Street could also change that. They could say, distribute the gold over the world evenly as a demand. And I think that's a very important demand. That's a peace-inducing demand. That's guaranteeing peace, because you cannot muster up a war effort if you don't have enough gold. But I have to stop this video, and thanks for listening.